On this week's show, discussing the high value of low code with Nic Yaros from Appian. In this week's news, AI training games, laser beams, space printing, and more. All right, we're back. It's an odd week. I'm not in the studio. I'm somewhere else. Y'all can figure it out later. But I have Tanis with me today. Tanis, how are you?
I'm great, Jeff, and I kind of wish I was somewhere else too, because it is 9 degrees Celsius here right now, which is it's a little cold for spring. I need some vitamin D. I am absolutely tired of winter, and I could be anywhere but here right now. And I think mentally I am. I'm on a beach somewhere with sunshine and lightly crashing waves. I'm visioning it because it's not here yet, and I'm so ready for some warmer weather.
Well, I'm totally with you. I have gone somewhere warmer, somewhere close but warm, and I'm loving it. Nic Yaros, we got you with us today. How about you? I think the overall sentiment is we're done with cold.
Yeah, absolutely. And maybe it's kind of insulting that I have like a slight burn since I live in Austin and I got lots of sun last weekend, but it actually cooled off this week. So yeah, I am a big fan of the warm weather.
Oh, cooled off. What is cooled off for you guys in Texas?
Cooled off is when you wear a vest like this because it's like 70 degrees.
I'm in shorts and a t-shirt and sweating at 70 degrees. I'm just going to be honest with you here. Like, we have very different views of this. It is going to be a blast today. We are going to have an awesome time. But you guys know, before we do, we got to pause for the cause. I'm here with Sasha Reed from Procore.org, and we're here on the Pause for the Cause. I'm really interested, and I wanted to bring out some of the partnerships that we're adding here at the ConTech crew. So why is it important for shows like ours and industry partners like you to really come together and tackle mental health awareness and the suicide issues that we have in the industry?
It's a great question. And I think the thing to keep in mind is whenever you're talking about something as substantial as suicide awareness and as alarming as to statistics around construction being the second highest rates of suicide in industry, we'd be fooling ourselves if we thought that this was a one-player fix, meaning that it just takes one silver bullet or one easy button to solve this challenge. This is a multi-threaded challenge, if you will, and it's really something that is the responsibility of all of us to lean in, to raise awareness, to provide tools and resources, to up-level conversations we have around, in construction, we're pretty much, hey, what's my job require me to get it done at any cost? Well, we now see what the outcome of that is. So I think it's important that we partner together to really have a unified voice around why mental health awareness is important, why it matters, and how we can frankly do better as an industry. It takes each of us leaning in to really create that.
I think you're absolutely right. And that's why we're changing the name of the cause for the show for the Pause for the Cause, so that we can really go after and we're not leaving preventconstructionsuicide.com and Cal Beyer. Cal started us on this awareness path. And, to me, it's like, we've been looking at the symptoms for so long. It's time to look at the source of the problem itself. And so that's what we're going to be doing here at the Pause for the Cause. You never know who's going to show up. If you're listening in and you have resources and you want to bring it to us, bring it to us. This is a free partnership. It's going to take us all pulling in the right direction. And it's what I'm passionate about here and what I think the entire crew is. And you at Procore.org are as well. So you just go to Procore.com/safety-qualified. But watch, we might soon have some more resources on thecontechcrew.com. Sasha, it is so awesome to sit down with you. I'm excited for our partnership. And listen, I want to let everybody listening in know that there are resources at Procore, but there's always preventconstructionsuicide.com. Or if you need help right now, dial 988 or text from your mobile phones for instant help. Hey, remember, we're back on YouTube, so check out youtube.com/@theConTech Check out our shorts. We just had somebody recently say how awesome those shorts are coming out. You got to know when every episode is out. The only way to do it is subscribe, so smash that subscribe button. Nic Yaros, Appian, strategic account executive, but there's a lot more to you. Tell us a little bit about your history, a little about how you got here. You have a bit of a history in construction, et cetera. So we'll get to the Appian piece, but let's hear a little bit about you.
So it started really with both of my grandfathers. They were really handymen, basically. And on my dad's dad, he was an architect. And one of the things that he thought growing up when he was raising my dad is that all these buildings and stuff that he would draw, is he actually had to know how to build it too. So he was a good architect in that, hey, I can't just throw all these crazy angles and all this stuff on a building and not know what it's going to really take to make it work. And so through that, my dad kind of imparted all of that on me and my sister. So me and my sister are both super handy. I do a lot of woodwork. I do a lot of electrical, plumbing. The one thing that she definitely has over me that I have not learned yet is welding. So I've been trying to get into metalwork. I have just not learned it yet. But then since my day job is being a nerd and building applications and being around software, I sometimes feel like I actually have to build something tangible. And so I love to break out on the nights and weekends and actually do construction. Or if it's a really bad week, maybe it's some demolition to break something because, take out all that rage.
The one
thing I always say to my girlfriend is that every time you complete something, like if you build something, you have to admire it. Admiring whatever your completed product is just part of it. So I'll finish like remodeling a bathroom, or maybe we just did the kitchen, and I love to go walk by it like 8 times a day and just be like, yeah, I did that.
The only thing I can say that with is a computer. As everybody who's listened to the show knows, I can't build anything. So I am completely enamored with the craft that all of you can do. So I love it. And you say your day job is a nerd. How did the two come about? I mean, some folks pick with a grandfather in the business and 2 grandfathers in the business and a history for it. Tell us a little bit about, how you brought your nerd and your builder together.
Well, my dad was a math guy. And so back then, I don't think they had like computer science degrees, or they were kind of becoming the thing. So like most of those guys, they started off in mathematics and then branched into computer science or being a developer. For me, when I was going to college, I thought I was going to be this incredibly wealthy developer and I was going to crush it. This was right around when the .com bubble was bursting. So some of those high hopes got crushed. I learned a hard lesson early on. But, I went and got my computer science degree and I loved it. I still love building applications, even though I've switched over to the sales side. Now I kind of support tools that kind of help people build.
Tanis, what do you got for Nic today?
Nic, I have a couple questions about low code, and that's really the theme of the show, right? We're talking about the high value of low code. Why don't you start out though, just telling us a little bit about what low code means for somebody who might not be as familiar with the term?
So low code just means that there's going to be more configuration than actually writing lines of code. It's more of a visual way to program, as opposed to the thousands of lines of code. My younger self loved to churn out and brag about how many hundreds of thousands of lines of code that I created. But really, there's a simpler way to build applications. And so you can use these simplified development languages. You use like a functional language that's similar to like the functions you see in Excel to develop some of that business logic. And the rest of it's more drag and drop in configuration. The difference that some people talk about is with no code. So no code's going to have a lot less of that functional Excel-like expressions that you can use. It's going to be more focused, solely on configurations. And because of that, there's some limitations when you talk about no code tools, because no code can do what it can do. But if you need to venture out or get creative and do some customization, it's going to really kind of stop you in your tracks, and it doesn't allow that flexibility. That's why I prefer low code, especially because I've got a developer background and I like to get in and customize stuff if I can.
That's awesome. So circling back to your undergraduate degree in computer science, if you could talk to your younger self back in those days when you were completing your undergraduate degree, would your younger self have believed that low code would be your future? Would that have even seemed plausible at that time?
This is sadly not. I thought I was like a good computer science student, and I probably should have seen this coming. But my younger self was all about seeing those metrics. So back then, it was like bragging rights to be like, oh yeah, I pulled an all-nighter. I banged out like 10,000 lines of code. It was like just this badge of honor you wore. If I had paid a little bit more attention, maybe when I was getting my computer science degree, I would have realized that this was kind of the natural evolution of software development, because, software development is all about abstraction. Like way back in the day, it was punch cards. And then software development or programming languages changed, and like they started simplifying it and abstracting out some of the complex pieces that people struggle with, so that you're not programming in ones and zeros, which would be incredibly complicated. So honestly, low code is just the perfect evolution of all that to kind of simplify things and make it so that more business users can get in there and start developing applications, as opposed to just relying on the hard code developer stuff that I learned back in school.
I did a little bit of research before the show started, because Jeff knows I'm a numbers guy, or a numbers girl in this case. So I love the data. And looking at Gartner report, they had projected by 2025, 70% of new applications developed by organizations will use low code or no code technology. So Jeff, I'm gonna spin the question to you. Did you see this coming 10 years ago? Did you anticipate that low code was the way we were going to go? Because I didn't, and I'm with Nick. I mean, back in those days, we were looking at the complexity of technology, and wearing it like a badge of honor, and crushing evenings out, and like Nick said, writing developers writing 10,000 lines of code, and now it's all about work smarter, not harder, and leverage the tech and have the tech do the work for you. Did you see this on the radar?
No, actually, I mean, gosh, if you look back then, I was working in DevOps and I was writing PowerShell scripts, and that was our badge of honor. Like I went home and figured out how to deploy all of this through a script, through the Azure API, and I'm writing all these codes. Or actually, let's be honest, I was stealing them from the internet and then adjusting them for what I needed them to do, and then testing them and then breaking them and doing it again. And I didn't see it coming, but I will tell you this: about 7 years ago, I'll give credit, when I joined the crew here, James had started talking about just the natural progression of the way code was being written, and that you were reusing more and more. And to Nick's point, you were abstracting a lot of that difficult stuff. And we even talked about this on the last show a little bit, is that like, you don't write the drop down menu anymore, right? That's just an assembly that you pull over and tell it what you want that drop down menu to be. And so we started to see that abstraction in that layer. But did I think it was really going to get this far with no code? No, I in all honesty, I didn't. And I'm interested, Nick, because it's not like that code has gone away, right? That still exists, and people are still writing applications. But where do you find the balance? How do you balance, like when an organization is sitting there thinking about, like, do we go to the no code, low code route? Do we buy off the shelf? Do we develop ourselves? Like, what's some things you can help them think about? What's the things they should be thinking about in that situation?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I usually talk with folks and I try to learn a little bit better about their organization. So do they have people in-house that are hardcore Java, C++, C#, Python developers, and that they want to stick with that? There is areas where you can extend platforms, especially ones like Appian, with that custom code development. And that makes a lot of sense for some really advanced plugins and stuff like that. But really, at the end of the day, we talk to a lot of business folks, because they're all about, they've got this massive backlog of applications that they've needed over the years. And how are they going to start, checking off all these things that they've needed for so long? And that's where the low code, no code tools are becoming really powerful, because now you can bring in people that are trained up more quickly in developing in low code and no code, and be able to bang out some of that list of the backlog that they've got. But at the end of the day, I talk to IT folks and they get nervous. Sometimes people might think, oh, they're coming after our job, like I'm such a good skilled developer. I'm a Java architect from my background, and I love it because I've never been able to build this fast. And for me, that's more exciting than the old school thought of how many thousands of lines can I get. Instead, now I can talk to businesses and be like, hey, you guys wanted to see this? A week or two later, I can show them what it looks like. And that's mind blowing because that would have taken me months before.
Yeah, it'd take you a lot of time and a lot of effort, and it might be wrong, right? Like it might not have been the right thing. So it helps in that whole agile, iterative, give people, an understanding of what Appian is too. I know Tanis has a question, but before then, let people know what Appian is so they have kind of an understanding of where you're coming from.
Appian's view of the world is process automation. So we talk to companies that want to automate their processes and streamline things. Nowadays, this is super important because some of the buzzwords are doing more with less. So as you have smaller teams and you need to be able to have all these applications, this is super important to them to be able to say, hey, we needed to automate this process. And usually it's around compliance and governance. So in the past, a lot of these things would be handled with spreadsheets, email. I get lost, maybe some SharePoint or some other technologies that really just don't bring the value of like a true enterprise tool. And building a custom solution is usually out of the question because it's going to take too long, or it used to be. And so now that you can build these quick solutions, Appian allows, business and IT to kind of, like I was saying, check off the backlog of applications they need to build quickly. And, it makes everybody happy. And it's rare to see, one of the things I think my tagline on LinkedIn even says is like, I'm helping business and IT actually kind of bridge that gap. In a lot of companies, business and IT are kind of at odds because I needed this, you guys didn't deliver it on time. This is where low code, no code is really stepping in and helping both sides.
Nic, is that the primary catalyst for organizations that are exploring low code or no code solutions? Is it mostly speed that's pushing or pulling them into the ecosystem, or are there other key drivers as well?
Yeah, I'd say speed is probably the number one, just because, if the pandemic kind of taught us anything, that some businesses need to pivot and change really quickly. Everybody adopted Zoom as like the de facto way to basically do work. And along with that, all of the other business processes that we have to deal with behind the scenes had to adjust. And I think it was just really difficult. And one of the ways the big ERPs and the CRMs and the document management systems, they're not built to pivot quickly. So you needed stuff like low code tools to be able to adapt your processes and your applications to meet how everything has changed. And as we know, it's going to be constantly changing all the time now, I think.
You hit on a couple of silver linings there, right? Like COVID had a few silver linings. A few of them were we have to do more with less, so to speak, remotely, et cetera. But two sides of the mouth. We always hear like, oh, you're coming for our jobs when you do this stuff like that. But you're saying you don't have enough. So I think there's a balance that has to be called out there that like there isn't enough of these folks to get this done. There isn't enough time to wait for us to pivot or be ready. So I'm interested in what are some of the solutions, some of the backlog that you're talking about? Give me some examples of what that backlog might be. So somebody who's driving down the road right now can think like, most of us are thinking in the backlog of like something huge, but that's not the backlog you're talking about. What kind of backlog are you talking about?
A lot of times you see it, the finance organization inside of any company has always got a massive backlog of, hey, most people need approvals for paying invoices. So accounts payable is kind of like the standard use case, I think, that's been trying to be automated over the last 15, 20 years. And it just keeps getting better and better because paying bills, getting purchase orders, purchase recs, all of those types of things slow down businesses. And I think when you start automating processes, assigning tasks to people, giving them SLAs to do their jobs, making it simple from a mobile device, the way that we should all be working, that just really changes how business happens. We see it a lot. You can see it a lot in construction with the project management side of things, right? So project management tools do a great job, but they don't necessarily send you a push notification to let you know you need to go check on this. Instead, you've got to go back and go check, meet with the team, have a debrief, figure out what the next steps are, and then go do it. We have customers that are out in the field and they'll be having lunch and they'll be like, oh, hey, I got to go, guys. I got to go check on this. I just got a push notification. And they'll be like, how did that happen? Oh, I just, it's this Appian thing. I have an app that kind of helps me run my project and everything.
So Nic, when you're looking at development flow, I mean, we hear this story from teams all the time, right? Somebody has a concept or an idea or a business problem that they're trying to address with technology, and everybody gets together and starts to talk about what this application could look like or should look like as finished product. And you start to kind of reverse engineer what are the things that need to be included. And that process for application development without a low code solution can take a substantial amount of time. The business requirements are documented. Sometimes what is explained isn't what's understood. So there can be a lot of back and forth and questions and mock-ups. And I mean, you can be a year later and still not have a finished product. So what does the workflow look like with low code solutions when you're getting stakeholders involved and trying to ideate? How is that different from traditional development workflow?
That's a great question. So thank you. The way that you can think about it is, you guys mentioned agile development, which is just the latest version of how you should be delivering software projects quickly and easily. We talk about it, or I think the head of our engineering talks about it as we're the peanut butter to their jelly, or peanut butter and jelly analogy of agile development and low code is really this sweet spot of, okay, agile development was supposed to be quick and speed up software development, but it didn't really live up to its promise because I don't think it had the matching tools to really be able to deliver on that promise. And so with Appian, you'll do agile, they call them a sprint, where it's like, hey, we're going to go a week or 2 weeks or whatever you decide on. And then you sit down with business users to say like, hey, this is what we built. What do you like? What don't you like? What can we change? And with traditional development, you couldn't really give them those options because, hey, you bid a project or someone bid a project that's going to take 4 months or something. You don't really have the flexibility to change. But with Appian, you come into those meetings, you show them, and they're like, oh, I hate how that screen looks. That's not going to be great for us. Can we change this up? And then the next sprint or the next week or two, you come back and you show them those changes and it's mind blowing. They're like, whoa, you changed that in a week or two to kind of show us like how we can start building these applications. And it's, the way I think about it, it's how companies really differentiate themselves in the market. A lot of our customers don't like talking about that they use Appian. It's their secret sauce to be able to say, hey, this is how we pivot and change and make all of our custom code the way that we can so quickly.
So how are you seeing that embraced within the construction industry? Because I can imagine that's pretty exciting for teams that have gone through traditional development workflows in the past, right? They provide some input, some feedback. 2 months later, somebody comes back with a mock-up and says, here's what it's going to look like, maybe. Yep. That process can take a lot of time. So in the construction industry, are you seeing people getting really excited about this?
Absolutely. I think that at first, like a lot of industries, when we're talking to them, it's foreign to them, right? This low code, no code, all of this new jargon. Hey, does it really live up to its hype? Is it really just, am I going to get like a really crappy application that barely works? I think is what most people think. The reality is you're going to get a really full-fledged enterprise app that's storing stuff in a database that you can use all your other technologies that you're used to reporting on it for BI tools and all that kind of cool stuff. So it's exciting for them to branch into a new industry like construction or ConTech, right? So as ConTech is trying to evolve and have these applications that are based on AI and all sorts of cool data visualizations, it just makes sense to make it be part of these bigger applications that you can build in low code.
Yeah, I think something people forget about AI is it's got to be fed data, right? If you want to see cool things, you need data. And a lot of what we build in construction and ConTech is the, quote unquote, sexy things, the reality captures, all of this, heavy duty stuff, but then you really meet the field or the office or the people where they are, and they're like, yeah, great, I got laser scanners and I got all this, but I got a pile full of paperwork and I got these over here and I got this thing. And it's like, wait a minute, so your day's really not like that much better, and the organization isn't firing at the level they need to fire at. And part of what you're saying is solve those problems, cut that backlog, cut those things out so you can do all those big sexy things. You can do all that really important stuff that needs to be done, but it's not really moving the business forward or helping them pivot without it. Right? You gotta have these other things done. So it's something for me is like Appian's a platform to do it. You know, who's doing a lot of that work, and what, you know, how fast can a business get up and running on something like this? Can they, you know, they need to send, you know, me to school for a year to figure this out? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah, it's pretty quick. I mean, there's definitely a learning curve. I wouldn't lie about it. So I think when I started, and I had a developer background, I went through our 2-week training course. And so that's usually what we recommend for everybody to go through. We have a bunch of online training as well, that people can go through and pick up all the pieces of Appian. But then coming out of that, I could build an application. I couldn't build it as fast as I could, you know, after a year of doing it. But I think my first application, it took me about 4 weeks to build. It was a training application for contact centers. It wasn't the most beautiful user experience. So it took me time to kind of think through how, you know, the term we use now is total experience, which is, hey, what does each member, when they're logging into their application, what's their experience need to be? Because I think a lot of enterprise applications are just one screen, and each person's role is really just tailored to say, hey, these 5 lines or this column or this box on the screen, that's where you do your work. And that's the way enterprise software has kind of always been. But with total experience or building apps this quickly, you can be like, I'm going to create a custom screen for you. The manager's going to get a custom dashboard that allows them to do what they need to do. People in the field get their mobile app so that they can scan their QR code and get on their work and make sure that they're being productive. And you don't have to kind of piece through all of the stuff that was like slowing you down before, which required so much training, right? So like, it's fast to learn to build Appian, but then you're building these Appian applications that's fast for users to adopt too. It's not like you need change management and massive amounts of, you know, documentation to get them up to speed.
Yeah, that's you hit on a couple of interesting things. Total experience is unique because given the ability to switch things out and fix things up, like you can really provide a pretty powerful experience to each person, so that, you know, that manager might be looking out over a fleet or a group of people, a group of supers or something like that, versus the super themselves. You're now meeting them on their mobile device to do what they need to do. And how many times have we picked an application that manager view, I'm going to go the other way. The field view is great. The manager view is awful. It just doesn't show. So you can pivot and adjust those things for that user's experience pretty quickly.
Exactly.
Tell me, does that have an impact on the quality of data, the quality of information that you see users getting back? I'm always looking for like that carrot. What are some of the carrots for that?
Because you streamline these processes, you know, or like what we're focused on for process automation, we're looking at all the metrics. So we capture all those metrics from a process standpoint. And then that allows us to kind of report back on all these processes. You can capture additional information. This is like right in Tanis's wheelhouse of, we focus a lot on data for what we're going to capture throughout each process, so that we can make sure that the reports that we're going to generate, either through Appian or through an integration with your BI tool, you know, everybody's getting to see, you know, what did version 2 of this process that we automated look like? And then maybe we're going to make some adjustments in a couple weeks, and then we get to see what those improvements are. And because we capture all of those things out of the box, we get to see process improvement over time. And we get to know that we're, you know, driving home a lot of value for the business, because something that used to take 2 months. Now we see takes a week. Why does it see that? We see kind of the iterations of how we've, worked on that process through time.
So now I'm going to spin this to Tanis, because I know Tanis was really excited to have you on and to talk low code. I'm interested, Tanis, in when you're looking at things like this and leveraging it and wanting to talk about it, what are some of the wins you're seeing? What are the things that you're nerding out? Because, process automation, we know that's your nerd out a bit. So what are you nerding out on this? And, what was some of your impetus for wanting this to happen? And talk to Nic, because I'm excited to hear.
A few things when it comes to low code. We had Adam McKercher on the show a while back, and one of the highlights of that show for me, he referenced what is the cost of not doing anything, right? So when somebody comes to you and says, "Hey, I have a business problem, and I'd like to have an application built to address the business problem," you really have to put that request in the frame of the larger organization and the prioritization of everything else that's going on, and ask the question, what is the cost of doing nothing? And if the cost is not high, then it's probably not a driver to go out and develop an application, right? But there's going to be situations where the cost of doing nothing is unknown, and that becomes a bit of a subjective conversation that the team is going to have. So what I really like about low code is those situations where the cost of doing nothing is high. I mean, obviously, there's a driver there to look at application development, because there's a cost to the organization of not acting on that business problem, whether that's process optimization or being able to visualize data, whatever that problem is. You can really dig into it with low code quickly. But those situations where the cost of doing nothing is unknown, or maybe it's high, or probably warrants some further exploration, or maybe it's kind of a medium level. I know we're getting a little subjective in our parameters of analysis here, but where the cost of doing nothing is not substantial. I mean, low code has great capability there, right? Because if you look at the cost of traditional development, it's not cheap, right? If you're looking at developing a full application for an organization, you're going to have stakeholder engagement time, you're going to have development time, review time, iteration time, you're going to go live, you're going to do user testing. I mean, there's a whole host of activities that are going to take place, and many individuals that need to participate in that process. If you can shorten that process and get an application into production faster that stakeholders have had input in, they're excited about, like Nic said, the change management portion isn't substantial because you're not rolling out a whole enterprise product suite. I think there's a lot of potential to make substantial business impact, not just in those high cost of doing nothing situations, but in a multitude of situations where the cost of doing nothing might be semi-high. So that's what gets me excited about low code, right? It's the wall to getting an application out there starts to break down a little bit, and we're going to get more tech in more people's hands in the field. And like you said, Jeff, get away from the hey, I got these stacks of paper everywhere. If we can automate some of those processes with low code applications, I would say that's a win all around. I mean, augmented reality, virtual reality, robotics, digital twinning, chat GPT, all of that is fantastic. But if we still have foremen out in the field with stacks of paper and paper timesheets and drawings that they're holding up, trying to have we really won? I don't think so. So I think this helps push the needle, and I'm a big fan of tech that does that.
Yeah, Nic, that's got to ring true for you. I mean, just go find paper and get rid of it, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, we've got so much, there's a lot of different technical components in our platform. One of the things that's really cool that I love is something that we have called IDP, which is Intelligent Document Processing. So since all of these AI services have come about, we're using them to our advantage. So maybe somebody isn't going to fully do a digital transformation, and maybe we're going to actually have to have forms, right? Or so we're still going to have some paper PDF or a Word doc or an Excel spreadsheet. Well, you can use stuff like IDP to ingest that and help you with your digital transformation. It is a step in the right direction of taking that paper away. Some people still want all that stuff in it. I totally get it. Or some people can't let go of their Excel spreadsheets. Like, I think somebody said once, you can pry my Excel spreadsheet from my cold dying hand. So I get it. Like, there's some hybrid of all of this too. And the platform needs to be flexible to be able to handle the full digital version of stuff, and then somewhere kind of in between.
I don't know. I don't know if I'm a fan of leaving them Excel in their hands, but I guess at some point you got to give up and keep going, right? Like it meet them where they are someday. Now, I actually agree with you a lot, because from a forms perspective, you know, we covered this a really, really, really long time ago, but there was a group that was like, we're going to go digital, no more paper free. And they were like, gosh, our processing times are way up. Like, things are taking a lot longer. What is going on? Well, digitizing certain things doesn't mean it makes it easier. Doesn't mean it makes it better every time. It's really about iterating and figuring it out. And like you said, your digital transformation, I want all of those folks to eventually make the leap, but we build things, right? This is construction. They need to be focused on building things, doing it safely, doing it with certainty, doing it with, you know, on schedule. And if that means right now, I got to take a pen and a piece of paper and do a few things, but then pick it up digitally somewhere, I've met my company where I need to meet. I've met my group where I need to meet. And that's, I know it sounds strange coming from a technologist, but you know, I'll go to something like, we had the Rocket books. I still use the Rocket book paper stuff for taking notes, because honestly, it's not even that I can't keep up typing anymore. It's that if I type while I'm talking to people, they can hear it on my microphone. And so you don't hear me scratching my paper in my Rocket book, and then I can take a picture of it and digitize it and go from there. So there's a lot of use cases for meeting people there. I like to poke around and you know, and say there isn't, but it's a reality, right? And I'm interested in how maybe you can make some of that work. Like, what is that? You called it IDP. Like, how does that actually work? How do you make that paper digital at some point?
Yeah, so it's the intelligent document processing. And, you know, like I mentioned before, we're very process automation focused. And I think some people, when they think about process automation, they just think about assigning tasks to somebody. There was this old school term called BPM, or business process management. That's really where it all comes from. And it was around assigning tasks to people, giving them an SLA of, hey, can you complete this task in the next 5 days? If not, we're going to round it to somebody else. And that's what helped processes move along. Appian kind of takes that process automation one step further, and that some of our automation tasks are, hey, go call this AI service. So the steps in our workflow or our process are going to go out and do integrations. And for instance, for the intelligent document processing, what it does is it's going to go call AI services that do optical character recognition. And so old school OCR, or optical character recognition, was you'd look at a form and then you'd kind of highlight where those certain areas are going to be. But the newer versions using AI are super smart. You can send it just a form and it figures out where all the various information is. Oh, we found a purchase order. It wasn't where we thought it would be, but we pulled it out for you because it was smart enough to look for that text. Or it's even gotten great, so impressive that it pulls out tables, right? So you could have your statement of works and all that stuff, and it'll pull it all out. You still want a human to kind of take a look at all those steps. And that's what brings it back into the process automation piece, is it says, okay, we'll use some smart stuff and we'll integrate with some things here. But then we're going to bring the humans back into this too, because they've got to review and okay everything.
All right, before I let Tanis jump in, I'm going to give you a big kudos there, and Nathan Wood's going to love it, because you just explained your 3-letter acronym, your TLA, before you gave it to us. So that's much appreciated. That's just a side note there. But I think that's fantastic, man. That's like, it's marrying the best of both worlds of, letting the human look at it, but doing a lot of the work ahead of time and letting them just fix what might be wrong or what might be off. So big kudos on explaining your own TLA. And then now I'll let Tanis jump in because I just had to do that there. And that's for Nathan Wood out there. See, we're learning over here, buddy.
Nathan is giving you a virtual high five right now, Nick. So I agree. Good job on that. So I have a quick question about barriers to implementation of low-code solutions. And we hear the term shadow IT all the time, right? And you'll get project teams who create applications that are fit for purpose for a specific project, or you'll have an organization or a business unit within an organization that will create an application for a specific purpose. And the term shadow IT is usually not used in a positive way because you have these very specific solutions that are not integrated within the larger enterprise IT ecosystem. Do you ever run into that conversation with organizations that you're talking with about low-code solutions where there's a concern that centralized control will be lost to a more decentralized structure, and that potentially creating some technical debt or perceptions of technical debt within the organization?
Yep. So the way I think about it is I think it's really the fault of the people that are in my same role. So the sellers in the past have gone because it's easier to talk to the business and show them this beautiful future using technology. And a lot of times I think it was difficult to engage with IT at the same time. So I personally, and Appian does as well, it's very important to get business and IT talking together. So this is going to solve the business's problems, but it's also going to solve IT's problems. We're not there to cut them out. We're there to help them. And this is why, it's not like everyone's going to be swinging their arms, singing Kumbaya, but that's really the end goal of being able to deliver projects like this is, hey, we got rid of your backlog faster. Now we answer your questions better. Hey, we need to pivot the business in this way. IT can deliver on that. And so I think in the past, I would say that shadow IT was becoming a really big thing. And I hope that it's kind of going away now because business and IT are learning that they can work together with tools like this. IT can even enable, from a security standpoint in Appian, you can change up the configuration of stuff once you learn that certain business users are good enough to go in there and change the application. You can enable it so they'd be like, hey, I've given you permissions to change up the business logic here because you may need to be able to do that. You learned how to use the functions inside of Appian. Maybe they went through training or maybe they just picked it up. And now they can go in and do this on their own. And that's what's really exciting too, because now you don't have to create a ticket to go back to IT to wait for them to make this change and you hope it'll happen within the next month. Now you can actually make it yourself and get going.
At the ConTech crew, we focus on technology that solves industry problems, and we've always believed in our sponsors. So much so that I went to work for one of them. So today, I want to talk to you about Join. Every construction project is a unique prototype, and it's actually shaped by thousands of decisions that impact the owner's business case, design, and the budget. Today, the communication driving these decisions is disjointed across all the stakeholders. Work happens in email, Excel, estimating, resulting in delays, waiting for decisions, waiting for access to information, and sometimes that information is outdated and incomplete. Managing the expectations of the team and keeping the project moving forward is a constant challenge, and a lot of times drives skepticism amongst the contributors. Join empowers general contractors to build with confidence and maximize the potential of every project by connecting these owners through new workflows that fit into your existing processes. We bring design teams and trade partners into a single platform. There's transparency and collaboration in the decision-making, which builds trusts and sets projects up for success. You might be asking yourself, do you need another tool? Well, let me tell you, Join fits in seamlessly with your processes and your other tools. In fact, we're here to help those other tools. Regardless of your estimating system or your project management process, Join will be a valuable added resource without disrupting those other systems and your teams. Check out Join, the collaborative project delivery platform for the built environment. Learn more at join.build.
So if you have a listener out there and they're tuning into the show and hopefully they're super excited about this and just geeking out on all the low code tech, say they are considering taking the use of low code to their leadership team and they're going to position it and say, this is something we need to be looking at as an organization. I think in the sales space, I think they're called objections, where somebody will say, it's not going to work because of whatever. I can imagine that happens from time to time. What are the objections that might arise through that conversation if somebody was pitching the use of low code within an organization that person would then have to navigate through conversation?
A lot of it's going to be that I think it's just like the face, or what all technologists face, is that technological hurdle of understanding what this new buzzword, low code, really means. So the way I always approach it is all about education. So most people are just confused about what it is that we're talking about, and if it's a gimmick. And so I think a lot of times we like to do a lot of proof of concepts to get in there and show them, hey, like, prove to us that, I always get this comment from people like, prove to us that you can build it in a week. Like, we have this challenge, this is what we need to do. And then when you show it to them, it's pretty amazing that it's not really a gimmick. And so I think, like all technologies as they come about, there's just this apprehension to be able to say, does it do what it says it does? Like, for instance, when ChatGPT and all this other stuff was coming about, a lot of naysayers were coming about and being like, oh, it gives bad data and it's not really useful and all that stuff. I think most people that are using it are finding a lot of use in it at this point. And so, but there's that hurdle every time. And there's always going to be naysayers. There's always going to be somebody in the room that kind of doesn't want to look at adopting new technology. I personally look for people that are, willing to go to like, I'm like a DIY guy at home, like we talked about, right? I do all my construction. I'm looking for those types of people that are saying, I want to get my hands dirty. I want to build an app. Like I have a lot of stuff that we need to be able to do inside of our organization. And I think that I'm looking for that person that sees the vision and the potential, but that they're definitely hard to find sometimes.
I really like the DIY approach. And Jeff, you're going to have to help me, or Nick. Somebody's slogan is "You can do it, we can help." It's I've seen it on commercials before, but company name is escaping me. But I'm thinking about that slogan as you're talking, Nick, because it, for somebody who really likes building things and doesn't have a computer science background, I mean, how exciting is that to be able to build an application that serves your purpose, leveraging an ecosystem that is really supported and embraced by the organization. I mean, having that capability is very empowering. I mean, I do DIY projects around the house. Some of them turn out great, some of them not so much, but leveraging tools and expertise, you can certainly do more than you can on your own, not having those enablers there. So I mean, that's absolutely exciting. I'm going to pivot real quick though, because you mentioned AI, and I know Jeff still has a question. So I want to table this one now, and then Jeff, I'll throw it back over to you. With all the AI hype out there right now, and there's so much, and everybody's really excited about this, and I hear about ChatGPT and now AutoGPT. We were having a good dialogue about that in the pre-show. How do you see AI impacting the low code space in the next, say, 6 months to 2 years? What does that look like?
I think you can have the approach be fearful of it. I am one of those people that likes to get in there and experience and experiment with technology. I think there's a lot of exciting things coming, especially for low code integrating with AI. So the more AI that you pull into these processes, the faster it gets. So, before, when we're talking about, a couple weeks to build an application, pretty soon you're going to be able to be building something and iterate on it and make your changes within the day. And I think that's going to be all part of this next evolution of these low-code tools, taking advantage of all of these AI things that are basically mind-blowing to me at this point.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. I mean, there's a lot of naysayers and people who say it's replacing jobs, et cetera, et cetera. But we always keep saying like we don't have enough people. We need to do these things. We have these backlogs of things. We have all this stuff to do. So I'm with you there. I think what the slogan you're looking for now, though, Tanis, is I'm going to give you a new slogan for Nic is turn your IT from the office of no to the office of yes. That was the whole problem with Shadow IT was we were saying no because we had limited availability, limited resources, limited support, and we had to maintain change management and security. And platforms like this allow us to maintain that security. And also, I would be honest, and we're going to get this down into the news later, but how you use AI and maintaining a layer between you and AI in some cases and understanding how you're interacting with it is important, right? Like low code solutions can be that layer so that you're not just letting too much go, right? Or opening yourself up for failure. Like you said, you're taking certain things and you're getting the AI to process it super fast and give it back to you, but you're checking it real quick. You're giving it an eye. And Tanis, it was you who was on the show when I made the prediction, and I still hold to that prediction that this is the year that an AI blows up a construction company. And a construction company is going to double down on something they got from AI or learned from AI or something, and it's not going to go the way they expected it. Right. That doesn't mean I don't think that AI is going to be huge and powerful and impactful and really move things forward. I think that's the case. I just think we're going to have a couple of epic failures before we really see the promised land a bit. And we're starting to see it now. So, I think lastly, I'd like to know, AI, other things. What's out on Nic? What's out on the Nic forecast to the future of like, what are you excited about that this technology, et cetera, gives opportunities for businesses?
I think I'm excited. The one end goal that all of these technologies are after is what's called the citizen developer. And I think that the technology has moved a great deal forward in that direction to where business users that are a little bit tech savvy can build their applications. I'm just really excited to see that move even further so that any business user can start building these applications. I honestly don't think we're there yet. But I think with some of the advances that we're seeing a lot in AI, we're going to be able to see people able to build applications even faster. Like I had so much doubt when I came in to Appian about you can build an application in a couple weeks. And I was like, no way. There's just no way that can happen. And I went through the training and built an application. I think I built it on the show Parks and Recreation because I like to be, or think I'm funny at least. And building that type of application that quickly was just insane to me. And I didn't have to spend, like most developers, I used to spend to the wee hours of the morning till 1 a.m. Like my eyes feel like they're bleeding just staring at lines and lines of code. It's not fun.
No, so it's a little bit of bringing the fun back. And I love the citizen coder because this future workforce, that they're digitally enabled as it is. So they're going to be able to not only identify problems, but then solve them and play a role in that and not just get frustrated. So I think there's a lot to that. I think we could continue on forever. I wish we could, but we can't. We got to get into that news. I'm sure there's some AI news coming, et cetera. So stay tuned. Thanks for joining us, Nic, today, and you'll be coming along with us. So we're going to get into the construction technology news of the week. All right, Tanis, what do you got for us this week?
I've got 3 good ones, Jeff, but we are absolutely going to start out with AI because it's been a theme of our conversation so far. So verdict, title of the article is AI-enabled construction investment surpasses investment in AI-enabled fintech. So it's not really a surprise. There's a lot of investment going into the AI space with a focus on construction, which is really exciting. Everybody's using ChatGPT. As I mentioned earlier, we had a good discussion about Auto GPT earlier in the pre-show. If you don't know what that is, please Google it because this week I went down a few rabbit holes. It's exciting. And there's already teams that are looking at how to apply Auto GPT. Very cool. But AI-enabled construction startups raised a collective $12.3 billion. That is a lot of money in the last 3 years. So investors are putting their money behind AI-enabled construction tech, betting on big outcomes here. As we talked earlier in the show, there's going to be some stumbles along the way, right? Tech deployment at scale, it's not always seamless, it's not always flawless. There's going to be a lot of lessons learned, and I'm not concerned about the stumbles along the way. Hopefully, they're not major. Proceed with caution as you're deploying new things. Make sure you have good stakeholder engagement, but we're all going to learn a lot from those stumbles. So I'm hoping for really good collaborative dialogue within the industry as applications are being developed, new tech is being rolled out, startups are trying and testing new things. I mean, that's what we want to see in the construction space, right? We want some collaboration. We want to be pushing boundaries, but sharing those lessons learned. Everybody loves getting up on stage at conferences talking about everything that went great. But it's going to be interesting to hear about those things that didn't go quite as well, learning from each other along the way. What do you think about the investment in AI ConTech, Jeff? Do you think there's more hype than practicality there, or do you think it's really going to pay off?
I think it will pay off. I think we're still going to go through some of the hype curve. I think that's where some of my predictions come from. But, to use your point, one of the things I said when we talked about that was it was just like, kind of as the industry got into technology and really went to digitize and digitalization of the industry, we saw attacks happen, right? And we saw big time issues with ransomware and others. And those aren't gone, but new solutions were enabled from that. New companies came out with new things. I'll go to Ignite for a second with their CMMC compliant environments. And we saw things outside of our world, but like Darktrace and others that, created and use artificial intelligence to combat those issues. So yeah, I think we're going to get there. I think we have a little bit of the hype curve. Like you said, I think some people will be getting up there, hopefully telling some wins and telling some bumps and bruises along the way. Hopefully they're not catastrophic. We never want catastrophic, even though I predict big issues. I hope those things that happen are, like a bad job, maybe, not anything happens to anybody. Maybe, you didn't make your profit like you thought you're going to make you thought you're going to make 25% profit. And you came back to your usual 2. That's a loss, but not a big one. So, and I think the investment, I think that shows that it should be something we're considering. It should be something we're working with and learning from. And now's your time to not fall behind. That's the other. So it's great. Nic, I know you're into the AI part of things. Just that number's just big, man. There's got to be something to that, or else people are flushing a lot of money in the wrong place.
It reminds me of the blockchain technology. So there was so much hype and promise around blockchain and then its cousin crypto. But now I think we're seeing this with AI, and we saw blockchain and crypto definitely have some blow ups and some challenges. So we're definitely going to see that with AI. I'm excited for it. I mean, I am a tech nerd, like through and through. So I'm excited to see where it goes. But like you guys, I hope there's nothing like really bad. I hope we don't have Skynet coming after us soon. That'll be the worst case, I guess.
Yeah, hopefully that's not the case. But I like the blockchain comment, man. I like the comparison there. And blockchain's doing a ton of great things. It's just not it's not necessarily what we thought it was going to be.
Just touching on blockchain for a second. It's not my second article, but I think blockchain is a little too coupled with its cousin crypto. And as we're talking about blockchain in the industry, some people are not as familiar with what blockchain is. That immediate association to cryptocurrency, that psychological linkage has been made, and disassociating the two is challenging. So, I think there's a lot of cool applications for blockchain, but I think that the struggle is real in the education and awareness piece, because a lot of people just immediately leap to crypto, and the two become one and the same.
Yeah, I think we don't hear about blockchain enabled things because I think they know if they say it, it will be brought to crypto. And so,
Right.
but that's also the maturity of a technology, right? Once you don't have to talk about it anymore and it's just running things, it's no longer hype. It's like reality. So I'm hoping that may be what's going on out there. We'll see.
It just becomes part of everyday life, right?
I always thought it was like the analogy I always used was like going to see the Super Bowl, where neither team that's playing in the Super Bowl you care about. You're just there to go to a friend's house. You're going to eat some really crazy, unhealthy food. But somebody brings up squares at some point and they're like, hey, $5 a square if you want to get in on this. All of a sudden, you're really paying attention to the game because you got money on it. And so it's kind of how I always viewed crypto is blockchain is such a really interesting technology, and crypto makes it even more interesting because now there's money on the table.
Yep.
I love the sports analogies, and hockey playoffs are on right now. So we are all in on sports north of the border because there's 3 Canadian teams playing in the playoffs. So shout out to the Canadian hockey teams. I've got my fingers crossed. We want to see a cup run this year. Not part of everyday life. So we're going to switch to a completely different track here. This is an article that was published by CNN. A 3D printing company is preparing to build on the lunar surface, but first a moonshot at home. So if you haven't heard of a company called Icon, it is an Austin-based company. It has received close to $500 million in funding. So it's a lot of investment behind it. Jason Ballard is the CEO and co-founder of this 3D printing architecture company called Icon. They are planning to build on the moon, which, I mean, as soon as I read the article, I was like, building on the moon, you've already hooked me. But they're doing some cool stuff on planet Earth. And we've talked about 3D printing a few times, and I haven't really been excited about 3D printing. I mean, the hype was there. We all got really excited about it, and then we're just not really seeing a ton of application. I'm not seeing 3D printers out in the field when I'm out on site. So I don't know, there's potential, there's practicality there, but we're just not seeing the growth and usage. But Icon's really doing some cool stuff with 3D printing, and maybe breaking down some barriers there. They build with a high strength concrete called lavacrete, which, I mean, you can't pick a better name. That's pretty cool. Yeah, I mean, you have me excited just by the terminology. And a large machine Icon calls the Vulcan does the printing, fed by an on-site mixing system that they have called Magma. So they're doing they've paired up with some really influential architects, and they're doing some interesting earth-based construction with 3D printing. And they're really trying to push the boundaries of 3D printing with things that are very visually appealing, people get excited about. So it's not just kind of like a block house that was 3D printed, which, I mean, has some practical applications, especially in areas that are underdeveloped and housing is scarce for people that are living there. Having cool looking architecture certainly gets people excited about the potential applications at scale. And the fact that they're planning to 3D print on the moon just had me excited as soon as I saw the title of the article. So there you go. If you're not familiar with Icon, check out their website. Jason Ballard, they're doing some cool stuff over there and planning to print on the moon.
I love it. But I can't not think of Austin Powers. We're printing with liquid hot magma. We're surrounded by it. I'm sorry. I'm a big fan of Icon and what they're doing. Got a lot of use cases, a lot of great stuff, and they are creating, look, moonshots are something we've always talked about. You wouldn't have a microwave if that didn't happen, right? So there's always side effects. Like, will it be the winner? I don't know. And I really hope for their sake, with $500 million, that they do succeed, and they've got some great stuff when it comes to, thinking about temporary housing for homeless or permanent housing for homeless, or, I always think in third world countries where we see earthquakes and other things that their buildings aren't built to code, that they can't withstand it, that there's loss of life that's based on building code, right? That they just don't have. So if we can come up with ways to continue to do that, that's great. But I do love whoever's doing their marketing and coming up with the lavacrete, the magma, the Vulcan. James is out there if you're listening. He'll love a good Vulcan. Good Star Trek reference. So good on you for out there doing it. And 3D printing's like blockchain to me. It's taken a while and it's taken longer than we expected, and I think it's going to take even longer than we expect now. But shooting for going to the moon gives them an opportunity to think things through in new ways that might work. Who knows?
Article number 3, ASO build. So speaking of science fiction references, building inspectors may soon be shooting laser beams. So if you've ever wanted to shoot laser beams with your eyes, here's your chance. And the subtagline is saving the construction industry millions of dollars. So augmented reality headsets are going to track eye movements by shooting laser beams, apparently, and compare those eye movements that occur during an inspection with the building's 3D model to determine if a thorough inspection was completed, which I think is a great quality control check, right? It's one thing for somebody to go out and take a look, but people are human, right? There's going to be things that you could potentially miss. You become distracted, a bird flies in front of you, somebody walks up and talks to you. I mean, you lose your concentration for a moment and you might miss a section of a building or a bridge or another piece of infrastructure. So being able to track eye movements and then compare that by shooting laser beams, compare that with your 3D model, and I'm assuming at some point develop some kind of a heat map to see what wasn't actually looked at. Fantastic. I mean, I don't see any downside here. And this was done at the University of South Australia by a PhD student, a computer scientist, and some colleagues from the UniSA's Australian Research Centre for Interactive and Virtual Environments. So I thought that was pretty exciting. I mean, I'd love to shoot laser beams with my eyes. I think that would just be a cool experience all around. But the quality control aspect here is I mean, it's pretty compelling. I think there's a great use case in the construction industry for tech like this. What do you think, Jeff?
Well, I think baseball season just started and you threw me a really high hanging curve and I got to hit it. What do I got to do to get freaking inspectors with laser beams on their heads? All I can think of is you're going to Austin Powers here. I need sharks with lasers. I need inspectors with laser beams. Actually, though, I can see the use case for the technology to heat map, to lay out whether or not we've inspected and what we've inspected versus what got built. We're always trying to identify that and do it faster. In the end, good augmented reality, good mixed reality systems that can give us those superpowers we like to joke about are pretty powerful in the end. And I can see a lot of use case for this to call things out so that you can get back and do that correct inspection. Cause look, that's where you catch a problem, right? Is early on in QC. So, Nick, I'm interested, we're going pretty far here. What do you think of laser beams for inspectors?
I love it. And part of why I love it is augmented reality and virtual reality and all this stuff that's coming about to augment how we do work, I think is super exciting. I'm following Apple's release later this year for their new headsets. I'm curious to see how it's going to be received. We've all watched how the other providers, as they've come out, have been somewhat adopted, and then, it just seems to kind of fade away. So I'm trying to figure out, is this the year that we see that it really takes hold and starts becoming adopted? I think it's a game changer. It just hasn't quite happened yet.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. My son just got the PS5 and the PSVR, and the advancement in the way that it does external mapping, and so what he can see is he's in true mixed reality, but oppositely stationed in virtual reality. I think there's some real advancements. I don't think we've seen where it's going to go. I mean, everybody we predicted, with the XR10 from Trimble, everybody'd have a HoloLens on their head, and we're not quite there yet, but there are use cases for it, and they're growing. So I would agree with you there. Well, thank you for that news today, Tanis. I got a couple here today. I'm going to bring one in. This is part of what could be a canary in the coal mine for some of the stuff I've talked about. This is from CFOdive.com. Samsung employees leaked corporate data in ChatGPT. If you are using ChatGPT and you haven't noticed that there is a warning, this is not private. Even if you pay, I believe it is still not private yet. So if you are providing an AI with corporate information, you could be leaking and breaking GDPR rules and breaking other rules. So a Samsung employee entered faulty source code related to the Samsung Electronics Facility Measurement Database download program to find a solution. They just gave them their code. Right? That's your IP. You can break this powerful tool can also be a powerful way to leak information and could possibly be used and has been started to be used to manipulate people. So I thought this was interesting as, the article goes through exactly what happened and, how those data privacy concerns exist, and that this is, you're probably going to start seeing companies lock it down and prevent people from using it. We're already seeing that in higher education and in high schools, et cetera. So it's not all sunshine and roses. Tanis, what are your thoughts on kind of the leaking of information?
This is we all get very excited about technology, right? But this is a situation that has created a very real negative impact for an organization that was using tech in the employee's perspective, probably in a way that they thought was helpful or productive, and in turn was not as much. So I think this is something that organizations, especially leadership teams, need to be aware of. And as the technology landscape changes quickly and these publicly available technologies become maybe not quite commonplace, but starting to be utilized within organizational operations, you need to be ahead of that with awareness and education programs and policies around how that technology will be used within the company. I've used the analogy before, I think on the show around bowling. I'm terrible at bowling. It's embarrassing. I'll end up with the ball in somebody else's lane. So for kids, they have those bumpers in the bowling lane. So the ball at least hits some pins on the way down, which is very helpful for me. But kind of the same analogy here. Organizations need to be thinking about having those bumpers in the bowling lane. It's okay to be using technology, but keep it within the boundaries of what the organization considers acceptable and mitigates risk around things like accidentally leaking proprietary code. If you're working in a tech company and you don't have education and awareness for your colleagues around how to use ChatGPT, this is something you absolutely need to be thinking about today. This has the potential to create some very real negative outcomes for teams that are using ChatGPT. So it just comes down to awareness, education, policies. But as things like ChatGPT come onto the market, leadership teams need to be understanding what the technology is, how it might be used, educating their teams around usage, and putting policies in place that prevent things like this from happening. Nic, you're in the tech space. What are your thoughts when it comes to situations like this?
I'm cautiously optimistic. I think that that we need those guardrails in place, like you're talking about. But I think the thing that scares me the most is like what some of the countries and stuff are doing. Like I think you guys can correct me. Was it Italy? I think that banned it altogether or something.
That's right.
Yeah, and so things like that, I don't think are really the right approach. I don't think there's an all or nothing here. I do think that there's some middle ground where there has to be discussions like you're talking about, Tanis, where it's like, hey, we need some governance around this tool. It's very powerful, but yeah, let's not completely remove it. That's like kind of the last thing. We want innovation and all this stuff to still happen, and I think it's really helpful there. So I hope at the end of the day that everybody realizes that the rules and stuff that we put in place can really help it out. Let's just not completely remove it from everybody's, ability to do anything.
Yeah, a direct ban on anything really never does work. Like, haven't we figured out that prohibition didn't work? Like, it's the same kind of thing. Like, people are going to go ahead and do it. So you just did it underground and now you don't know what's happening. And now it's even more of a black box that you don't understand. So let's bring it out. Let's understand it. Let's see how it works. Let's shut it down where it doesn't work, right? Like, there are definitely areas that it's going to try to move into that just aren't right for it or need to be, the algorithms need to be like tennis bowling. They need to have a few bumpers put up, maybe for our safety, not theirs. You know, it's not about them hitting pins. It's about us not getting hit by the ball every once in a while, maybe something like that. So, but yeah, we need those wrappers. So don't bury your head in the sand, because pretty much most knowledge workers, in my opinion, over the next 5 years will be AI enabled knowledge workers, right? And they'll just be amplified. We'll be amplified by what we can use that technology to do. And I think that's going to be true. You're starting to see some higher education start to embrace it so that they can control it, right? So that it's not doing the work of learning for students. It's just amplifying what they can produce and what they can learn. So great stuff. I'm going to go to the last one of the day, though, is BIM in construction market. The global market is growing at a CAGR, which I'll go find that in a second again, but it's the compound annual growth rate of 14.5% during the forecasted period. This is just going to blow your mind that according to the report, the global BIM and construction market is expected to grow from 6.6 billion in 2022 to reach 13 billion by 2033, growing at a compounding annual growth rate of 14.5% over that time. Now, you can think of a lot of things and you can think of a lot of money, but for me, the key highlight here, Tanis, is that BIM is taking hold. BIM is the way. You know, I will go to my Star Wars. BIM is the way. This is the way. This is what we will hear going forward. This is what we will embrace. Maybe finally we'll get over the hurdle and realize that virtually building things, virtually designing things, and designing things in 3D is the way of the future. You know, I think when someone like Sal D'Ambrosia hears this, you know, he might roll over a little bit in his market, but he's going to be jumping up and down and screaming that this is coming. And I also think that this is pretty cool that it says that North America dominated the market in 2022, which I think more means that it really took hold and grew at that exponential rate. Like we're finally reaching that BIM flywheel. So I was excited. Tanis, what are your thoughts on that growth? And are you just popping champagne and enjoying?
Not quite popping the champagne yet, but I mean that now I have justification to, right? It's Friday. Why not?
Yep.
This is substantiating what we've all been talking about for so long, right? Digital project delivery, model-based building. We've been advocating for it for so long, and there's been so much growth and development in the space. And to see the forecast that's substantial. I mean, a annual growth rate of 14.5. That's huge. And to your point, you know, North America dominating the market. I love it because, you know, 10 years ago when you were talking BIM, there was quite a few people who would, you know, do a double take, building information modeling. They're like, what's that? Fill me in. What am I missing here? Now you're talking BIM and, you know, people are like, yeah, we're doing that. We've taken steps. We've deployed technology. We've got a team. We're growing. We're excited about it. So the momentum in the industry has certainly shifted, especially in North America. I mean, there's other areas like the United Kingdom where BIM has been in utilization and is far more prevalent than in North America. I mean, you talk to people in the UK about BIM, and they've got just a massive depth of experience there. That experience base is growing in North America. And it's fantastic to see that is forecasted to continue to do so. And like I said, Jeff, it's substantiating what we've all been saying for so long. Digital project delivery, get behind it. It's not going anywhere. This is the way of the future. Nick, what do you think?
You mean that we don't have to have paper all over the place still? I thought that's what everybody wants to stick to. But no, you're right. This is super exciting. I'm super excited for you. I didn't know much about BIM until I'd met Tanis. So all of my BIM knowledge has come from Tanis, and I've been super excited about it. One of the things that I've been doing, trying to work with Appian, is to incorporate that inside of low code. So a BIM component inside of low code tools, I think, is really powerful. So I love pushing the boundaries of technology. So, and this is one of those things that when you see it and you see how useful it can be for delivering projects, I think it just has to be everywhere.
You hit on something there, Nick, is that people think, BIM, it's just all BIM. It's really not, right? It's a foundational piece that then all the other things that we do, whether it's that quality assurance check, whether it's that statement of work, whether that's bill of materials, those things that you're producing through those automated workflows, they're great, but they're even better if they're in context with where they are in the building and how it was built, right? This true data twin that pieces things together so we can see more about what we built. I'm getting prepared to go talk at an event coming up, and I've been really, really just thinking about this time machine, as Charlie Dunn would say, that we're building this time machine that can take us digitally into the future to find problems, to identify them, and then come back to today and really prepare to solve them ahead of time, because we don't have the people, we don't have the time and the money to do rework as we build things. And digitally at the foundation, it's BIM. It's not that anything else you're doing is not powerful, but if you really put BIM at the center of it, well, then it becomes spatially, location, all of that aware, and we can reach newer heights with it. So that was what I had. I wanted to thank both of you for sitting down today. It's always awesome to meet new people and to have great conversations. And again, I get to do this every week, and I got you here today, Nick. So it was awesome to meet you. Thank you for joining us for the show today.
Oh, thank you guys. This has been awesome. I feel honored to be able to sit down and chat with you guys today. So thank you again.
Yeah, thank you. And Tanis, as always, thank you. Thank you for bringing Nick to our attention and bringing him here. Stay warm up there, I guess. I don't know. Hopefully and good luck in the hockey playoffs. We might allow it. It's what is with that too. Boston Bruins have the greatest season ever and then go into what happens in the playoffs? I don't know. It means the regular season is nothing. It's just a prep for the playoffs, right?
You know what? Game one of the Oilers. So I'm from Edmonton originally. So my team is the Red Wings. I love the Red Wings. Red Wings aren't in the playoffs this year, so I'm cheering for Canadian teams. The Oilers were up 2-0. I went to bed after the second period. I woke up in the morning. Game one, I was like, what happened? How did you lose? But anything can happen in the playoffs. It's crazy. So thank you for the well wishes. Hoping to see a Canadian team go all the way this year. Super excited about that. Always great to be on the show. Jeff, we always have an absolute riot. And Nick, thank you so much for your insights today. Love the low code topic. I mean, I'm sure this dialogue is going to continue even further on social media. So if you want to join in the conversation, make sure you check out the crew's YouTube channel. Click subscribe. You're gonna keep up to date on all the cool stuff we're talking about, low code and otherwise. So get in contact, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Follow the crew on LinkedIn and connect with us. I mean, we're all on LinkedIn all the time. So start a conversation, ask some questions. Let's geek out on more tech.
I love that. As always, pushing the crew. Thanks, Nick.
Thanks, y'all.
And thank you for tuning in today to geek out for our interview with Nic Yaros. To read all our news stories, to learn more about our guests, and to listen to this show, visit thecontechcrew.com. This is the ConTech Crew signing out. Until next time, enjoy the ride and geek out.